In the early years of World War II, the sky became a battlefield where youth and fear flew side by side. Among thousands of recruits stood an 18-year-old cadet, barely old enough to shave, yet trusted with one of America's most complex fighter aircraft. His name was not famous, not yet written in history books, but his destiny was tied to the silver twin-boomed aircraft known as the P-38 Lightning. The P-38 was not forgiving. It was fast, heavy, and demanded absolute respect from anyone who dared to fly it. Two engines roared like beasts chained to metal wings, and one mistake could turn confidence into catastrophe. Training fields stretched across the American countryside, where young pilots learned that the sky was beautiful only to those who understood it. The cadet had dreamed of flying since childhood, staring at clouds as if they were doors to another world. When war arrived, dreams turned into duty. Instructors warned him repeatedly that the P-38 did not behave like smaller trainers. It accelerated faster, it climbed higher, and when it lost control, it punished hesitation. On a clear morning, the cadet strapped himself into the cockpit, hands trembling slightly despite weeks of training. The canopy closed, sealing him inside a machine designed for combat, not mercy. The engine start sent vibrations through his spine, reminding him that this aircraft had power far beyond his own strength. He taxied onto the runway, heart racing faster than the propellers. Permission granted. Throttle forward. The Lightning surged ahead, lifting into the sky like a predator breaking free. Below him, the earth shrank into patterns of green and brown. Above him, endless blue. The training mission was simple: altitude climb, basic maneuvers, controlled turns, and descent. But war does not respect simplicity. At higher altitude, thin air changed the aircraft's behavior. The cadet banked into a turn, slightly sharper than instructed. A minor error, a fatal invitation. The P-38 responded with a sudden shudder. The nose dipped. The wings began to wobble. Then it happened. The aircraft entered a spin, not a gentle spiral, but a violent, accelerating rotation that slammed the pilot against his harness. The horizon vanished. Sky and ground swapped places again and again. Training manuals warned about spins, but reading words on paper could never match the terror of experiencing one. The cadet pulled the controls instinctively. The worst possible reaction. The spin tightened. The aircraft screamed under stress, metal groaning like it was alive. Altitude vanished rapidly. Every second meant hundreds of feet lost. Fear flooded his chest, cold and paralyzing. Instructors had said, trust procedure, not instinct. But panic does not listen. The young pilot forced himself to breathe. He remembered one sentence buried deep in his training: sometimes, letting go saves your life. With shaking hands, he stopped fighting the aircraft. He neutralized the controls. For a brief moment, nothing happened. Then something unexpected occurred. The rotation slowed. The Lightning hesitated. It was not fully recovered, but it was no longer getting worse. The cadet realized the aircraft was telling him something. This machine did not want force. It wanted balance. Carefully, gently, he applied opposite rudder. Not aggressively, but with patience. The spin loosened its grip. The nose dropped into controlled descent. The wings stabilized. The aircraft flew again. He had survived his first real test. Hands soaked with sweat, he leveled out, heart pounding louder than the engines. The training flight ended early. When he landed, his legs nearly failed beneath him. Instructors saw the terror in his eyes and knew he had crossed a line no textbook could prepare him for. That night, the cadet could not sleep. The spinning sky replayed endlessly behind closed eyes. But something else stayed with him too. A realization. The spin was not just an enemy. It was a doorway to understanding the aircraft's hidden behavior. Most pilots feared spins. He had survived one, and unknowingly, he had learned something few others had. Something that would one day save his life again. Far beyond training fields, far beyond safety, in the skies where enemies waited. War has a way of accelerating time. Weeks of training were replaced by orders stamped with urgency. The cadet was no longer a student. He was a pilot headed toward combat zones where mistakes meant death. The P-38 Lightning followed him across oceans, now painted with the scars of war. Every mission carried risk, but none prepared him for what came next. On a patrol flight, the sky appeared calm, almost deceptive. Clouds floated peacefully, as if the world below was not tearing itself apart. Then radar warnings crackled through the radio. Enemy aircraft approaching. 5 of them, experienced fighters, flown by pilots who had survived countless dogfights. The cadet felt fear return, sharper than before. 5 against 1 was not a fair fight. The P-38 was fast, but it was also heavy. Turning battles favored lighter enemy aircraft. The first enemy fighter dove toward him, guns flashing. The sky erupted with tracer fire. He pulled hard, rolling away just in time. Another enemy appeared on his tail. Then another. They were hurting him, forcing him lower. Every maneuver drained speed. Every turn tightened the trap. The cadet remembered his instructor's warnings. Never let them control the fight. But how does one control chaos? As bullets ripped through the air, his aircraft began to shudder again. The same vibration, the same warning signs. Another spin was coming. Any other pilot would have panicked. Any other pilot would have fought the controls desperately. But this cadet remembered the training flight. He remembered the moment when letting go saved him. Instead of resisting, he made a decision that defied instinct. He allowed the aircraft to enter a controlled spin. The enemy pilots followed, believing he had lost control. They smelled victory. The lightning rotated violently, dropping altitude fast. The cadet counted seconds in his head. 1, 2, 3. At the exact moment, he applied the same gentle correction he had discovered months earlier. Neutral controls. Opposite rudder. Patience. The P-38 responded instantly. But this time, something different happened. The aircraft did not just recover. It snapped out of the spin with explosive energy. The sudden change in motion threw off the enemy pilots. 2 overshot him instantly. Another struggled to recover altitude. The cadet pulled up sharply, using the lightning's superior climb. For the first time, he was above them. Position mattered. From above, he had control. He dove on the nearest enemy aircraft, firing a short burst. The enemy broke away, damaged but alive. Another enemy tried to climb toward him. The cadet repeated the maneuver. A brief spin, a sudden snap recovery. The sky became unpredictable. The enemies lost formation. Their advantage disappeared. Within minutes, the 5-on-1 engagement dissolved into chaos. Confused and low on fuel, the enemy pilots retreated. The cadet was alone again, alive, victorious. His hands shook, not from fear, but from realization. He had used the spin as a weapon, not to escape, but to outthink. When he landed, mechanics stared at the aircraft, riddled with minor damage but still intact. Commanding officers listened carefully as he explained what happened. At first, they did not believe him. Using a spin intentionally was considered suicidal, but evidence could not be ignored. The engagement data supported his story. The cadet had discovered a maneuver manuals did not teach. A dangerous trick, but an effective one. Word spread quietly among pilots, not officially, not openly, but in whispered conversations before missions. Sometimes, he would say, "The aircraft knows how to save you better than you do." War does not celebrate survival. It demands it repeatedly. The cadet flew more missions, each one testing the limits of man and machine. Not every fight ended in victory. Not every friend returned. But the lightning carried him through storms of fire and steel. His trick was never written into manuals. It was too dangerous, too dependent on instinct and timing, but it existed. A secret shared only by those who truly understood their aircraft. After the war, the cadet returned home older than his years. 18 had become 22. But his eyes carried the weight of a lifetime. The world moved on. New aircraft replaced old legends. Jets erased propellers from the sky. The P-38 Lightning became a museum piece. Silent, still, but its stories lived on. Aviation engineers later studied unusual flight behaviors. They confirmed what the young pilot had felt in his bones. The Lightning had unique aerodynamic traits. Under the right conditions, a spin could store energy rather than destroy it. It was not luck, it was understanding. The cadet never called himself a hero. He simply said the aircraft taught him how to listen. Years later, when asked what saved him that day, he answered quietly, respect for fear, and patience in chaos. His story never made headlines, but in the invisible history written across the sky, it mattered. Because sometimes, survival is not about strength. It is about knowing when to stop fighting, and when to let the machine show you.